It's not about what the liberals or liberalisers would call misogyny or a hatred of women. The central issue here is a very serious one, in fact a wicked one, and it's desacralization.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to Faith and Reason. We have a jam-packed show today. We have coverage of a woman bishop processing at a Catholic Mass. You'll see her up in the procession. And also on the altar during the celebration of the Mass with like 6 bishops and looks like dozens of priests. Who knows what that's all about. Also, there is Archbishop Naumann, who fought the Satanic Black Mass, Kansas State Capitol, all the heroics that went on there, but Archbishop Naumann, including fighting it, also celebrated a massive reparation, and it was jam-packed. In addition, we have Brett Cooper giving stunning interviews on pro-life on major channels, and we're going to look a little bit into her amazing activism, not only for life, but also for family. All that and much, much more on this episode of Faith and Reason. Stay tuned. Father Charles Murr, Frank Wright, so good to be with you both.
Hello again.
Pleasure and honor.
Father, start us off with the sign of the cross, if you would, please.
Certainly. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen.
Amen. So, Father, this is a crazy one. We had this is in El Salvador. On March the 24th, there was a Mass held to mark the 45th anniversary of the assassination of Archbishop Oscar Romero, held in the chapel of the Hospilatio La Divina Providencia, where Romero was assassinated, and the Mass was offered by Bishop Oswaldo Estefano Escobar Aguilar of the Diocese of Chalatenango. And so we're going to watch this clip and get you to explain it, because this is insane.
Ele é o rei dos reis, rei dos deuses, o maior. Vão entrando e de joelhos.
Thanks be to God, the nuncio has actually said that this should not have happened. It should not have taken place, he said, because it's forbidden by ecclesiastical law. And he goes on and adds a few things. But I mean, Father, this is nuts. This is the bishop of the place allowing for this. This is priests and the other bishops. There's like 5, 6, 7 bishops here. They're all no one has a problem with this. They're processing up and they're having a Mass with a female supposed fake priest on the altar and calling herself a bishop on the altar. This is insane.
Yeah, I was looking at this. The problem isn't that I have a problem with it. The problem is that the bishop and all of the other priests did not have a problem with it. That's the problem. It's a glaring problem, and it should have been taken care of immediately. It wasn't, because generally speaking, they have no real problem with this. This is not a problem for them, and I think they're indicating where the church, at least the church in parts anyway, is leaning. Pope Francis certainly is leaning that way, though he says he's not. So many cardinals and bishops say they're not leaning that way, but they are. They have no problem with this. The nuncio also, his response, though you may congratulate it for him taking notice of it, his response was incredibly weak. I mean, the bishop should have been reprimanded severely. He should know better. The priests should have been reprimanded severely. They were not. It's just it's what's happening without leadership in the church, and we have been living this way for decades now, or at least 12 years of lack of leadership. Had this happened with someone else in a more traditional sense, there would have been action, severe action taken. We know that. That's why it's unfair. It's unfair. Let me just say something too. The day that this is not going to happen, all right? But the day that, if ever in fantasy, it would happen that they permit women's ordination, that is the end of that segment of the church called Catholic. It will be ended with that. It's very simple. So I wouldn't have people get too upset. If that happens, those who go along with that will no longer be Catholic. It's very simple.
Well, it's all very synodal, isn't it? It's cognate with a move towards the acceptance and openness and welcoming spirit of the synodal church. And it's important to remember that perhaps the foremost advocate for the synodal path is, of course, the German bishopric. And they've recommended that women be included in some way, in several ways, I think, in the Mass, in the celebration of the Mass. And of course, if you go to, even in Britain, if you go to even one of the ancient cathedrals, you can see women elaborately dressed, administering the Eucharist, wearing strange garments, and so on. So the fact that they've migrated onto the altar seems to be simply just a slight shift in tone, because as Father Moore correctly points out, this is the way that things are going in terms of the synod, and these are the kind of things that have been encouraged by it, which leads to this profound confusion. And again, as Father Moore points out, a regrettable lack of firmness or firm direction from the nuncio himself.
Frank makes a very interesting point there, Father. I want to come back to you on that because he relates this then to extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion, often whom, I would say the vast majority of whom are women. That happens at parishes all over the Western world, America and Europe. It's not a far cry from this type of thing. What do you have to say to that?
Well, you're absolutely right. It's not a far cry at all. Why isn't it a far cry? Because there is, as time goes on, there is less and less and less special about the priesthood. This is the problem. It's anyone can do what the priest does. Most Catholics, we know this already as a fact, don't believe in transubstantiation. Well, then, what prevents a woman from taking that active role? Nothing. This is exactly what has happened. And they knew it was happening from the 1970s. You'll remember, maybe you don't remember, you're too young, both of you, but I remember very well, women were not permitted to read at Mass. And it wasn't, this again, all of these things were not anti-woman. They were pro-priest. This was the role of the priest. Then later on, that changed. This changed. Giving out communion changed. Then we started wearing disguises. Somewhere, I walked into a Mass, you couldn't believe this one, on vacation. I wanted to make a visit to the Blessed Sacrament. I stopped into the church. There were women wearing chef's hats. You remember the chef's hat, the white chef's hat? This is giving out communion. They don't know what to invent. People don't sleep at night thinking of these things. I'm telling you, it's crazy. But they have denigrated the role of the priest to being a leader. As Frank brought up correctly, the Synod on Synodality, whatever that is very much in favor of all of these things because they are giving the same authority to lay men and to lay women as to bishops, cardinals, priests. It's the same. They all have the same vote. As a matter of fact, they outnumber them. The lay people outnumber them. They're getting rid of the clergy. They're getting rid of the hierarchy. These are real issues for concern. Again, it's not going to happen because our Lord is not going to permit that to happen to his church. But those who make it and push for it to happen will find themselves outside of what it is the Catholic Church. And perhaps this is the direction that we're headed. I assume it is. But it's not all that bad. I'm simply saying it's not all negative. But this is what's happening. And to say it's anything else is just is not being realistic.
You know, I bet that same church, those same bishops, those same priests would all object if Archbishop Vigano were to try and process up with them and offer the Mass with them. I don't think that would be allowed.
You know they would. This is exactly my point. Yes.
Nothing's more scandalous than a Catholic to these people, but I think Father Moore makes a very important point. It's not about what the liberals or liberalisers would call misogyny or a hatred of women. The central issue here is a very serious one, in fact a wicked one, and it's desacralization. It is the subtraction of the sacred from the celebration of the Mass, which is of course an attempt to, if you like, diminish the presence of Christ, or dare we say it, subtract it completely. This is the reason why the doctrine's being changed, why the Mass is under attack, as we might say. And these aren't just meaningless traditions. This is the Catholic tradition. And this isn't an erosion in the name of some form of liberal evolution. I think it's a deliberate attempt to replace it. And it's a deliberate attack on the sanctity of the Mass and the central mystery of it, which is, of course, Christ himself.
Well, let's move on to some better news. There's amazing news in the church in the United States. And what's interesting is it comes because of a horrific thing. This satanic black mass held at the Kansas state capitol, scandalously allowed even to be on their grounds by Governor Laura Kelly, was nonetheless confronted by Archbishop Naumann. He went to court about it. He did masses of reparation before and after. And I just want to show you this clip from this mass of reparation afterward, because it was jam-packed. It was like 100 times more than the number of people who were there doing this horrific sacrilege, this desecration, this satanic event or whatever they had.
Before the mighty and ineffable prince of darkness, Jesus Christ is King. In the presence of all the dread demons of the pit, and in this assembled company, I acknowledge as the best my past. I acknowledge and confess my past. I am not resisting.
Will. That the Lord may enrich the faith and love of these expectant women and couples as they anticipate the birth of their children. Let us pray to the Lord.
So that's just gorgeous. Of course, we had the guy that we covered on Faith and Reason, the sequel, on Wednesday, where the guy who intervened to save the Blessed Sacrament got beat up for it. Had the other young man who tried to take away the incantation sheet. He got punched in the face a couple times for it. Outstanding Christians standing up for the faith and standing up for Kansas, honestly, unwilling to let their state capital be desecrated like that, to make it a mockery. And of course, the governor there is pro-abortion. And this is another thing that the Archbishop did. He knew very well that this satanic ritual, it was a satanic ritual, but they're doing this also because they're abortion supporters. So what he did at the same time was he went out and did a pro-life demonstration with the faithful outside of Planned Parenthood, praying there. So it's just stunning. It's fighting fire with fire. I thought it was really beautiful.
It's a shame that the faith has to come under such attack to get a reaction from our hierarchy and our clergy. This is the shame. However, good. I was actually surprised that the bishop took such a proactive role. I really was happily surprised. And that priests were with him, and that the lay people, usually the lay people are the strongest in these sorts of things. But it was very, very, very welcome sight to see the bishop and clergy with them, professing what they're supposed to profess.
Beautiful. It's from Archbishop Naumann, so it's not surprising to me. I've known him for a long time, and not personally, but of him, and he's been a stellar representative of the faith, and one of the strongest bishops in the United States. He's also a man of very strong stature. He's huge, and so he's a big man in the faith. So that's for sure.
Well, a sterling performance from a sterling soldier for Christ. And I think it's important to note that the Satanists themselves appear to be in no doubt whatsoever about the real presence of Christ in the Holy Eucharist, because this is the reason they seek to profane it. So they are, in an odd sense, affirming the real presence when they attempt this horrendous act of sacrilege, which was happily corrected by this wonderful Mass of reparation. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Now, somehow, or for some reason, we've had, especially in the last little while, a spate of the craziest demonic activity, or people taking on Satanism or devil worship or some kind. And we just had it again. So, and I haven't shown you guys this yet, but we just had this come in. It's literally breaking now. It happened in Germany. It's a soccer club. And honestly, the team calls themselves the Red Devils. And I know there's a hockey team, I think, in the United States. It's also called the Devils. But even though they say that, I don't think in their name they meant it to be, like that was devilish, that kind of thing. In Germany, this group, I kid you not, they have in the stands among the fans, they did this whole little incantation called Arise Satan. And here, just take a look. This is a clip of it. This is weird. In the past, when I think it's the New Jersey Devils, if I'm not mistaken, none of that meant devils in the past. What's happening? We
shouldn't miss the political climate of the West, of Western, if you will, civilization, what's left of it. You've got people who are tremendously angry because of it's their own fault that they're angry. They've made themselves angry. Protesting Trump, protesting anything that's not going left in direction. You have this all over Europe. You have it in the United States. You have it in Canada. We've seen it all over the world. Their only way to protest is by being outrageous. Outrageous. Anyone who's into satanic devil, satanic worship, devil worship, and the like, is crying for attention. Crying for attention. I've met and dealt with a few of them, and when you get right down to it, it's just my mother didn't love me, my father hit me. It's ridiculous when you get down to the root problem. It's not that they're particularly believers in satanic power or anything else. It's to be against something. It's to be against and to be seen and to act up and to act out. This is what's going on. And I think this is one of the reasons they have to be outlandish, because they consider what is happening to the world to be outlandish. They consider what's going on in civilization today outlandish, and this is their way of reacting.
Well, of course, it is deeply cringe, meaning it's almost toe-curlingly embarrassing to be part of this spectacle, or probably to be in the crowd as people are doing this. But why do they do it? Well, Manchester United are nicknamed the Red Devils. And that's nothing to do with Satanism. It was due to a devilish performance of a rugby club, I think, that they took their name from in the 1950s. So it had nothing satanic in it. But this is where they get their moniker from. But the fact that they want to enact this in public, it does seem to bespeak of a desperate plea for attention, as Father Murr says. But I would argue as well that it does seem to tessellate well with a kind of coalition of resentment that is the liberal idea generally, and which is in rather it's rather rapid retreat now. These people aren't winning. So I think this is one reason why you might see these spasms of rebellion come out. And oddly enough, I would say that they have the net effect of reaffirming the central truth of the Christian religion, because they present people with this spectacle of theatrical evil, which is supposed to be shocking, but really simply reminds you of how desperate these people have become if they seek for meaning in these diabolical symbols. It really is a sign that people generally, some of them, not all of them, but some people are utterly lost in life.
For U.S. residents, creating a will has never been easier. Thanks to My Legacy Will, an online platform free of charge, you can now create your own will and choose to include LifeSite News in it, specify where your funeral will take place, the number of masses to be offered for your soul, and how your estate will be distributed. We would be deeply grateful if you remembered LifeSite News in your will. Visit mylegacywill.com/LifeSite News. Thank you for your support, and may God bless you.
Speaking of desperate liberals, I wanted to raise, especially with you, Frank, what's gone on in France. So In fact, in a lot of different countries now, we had the Romanian conservative election that the conservative won. It was overturned. You had Bolsonaro jailed in Brazil. You have they tried it with Trump. It didn't work. We've seen it all over the place. And now in France, they judged Marine Le Pen guilty on what seemed like trumped up charges. And I say that intending the double entendre with trumped up charges. And then you have her declared immediately that she can't run in the election, even though she's 12 points ahead in the polls.
Well, it is quite obviously trumped up. It's political. It's not legal. If you look into the charges are that she misused some European Union funding by spending it on party officials that weren't in the European Union organisation, but were in France. This is an oversight, if you like, that is routinely made by all major political parties. She's been singled out for this, so there really is no crime here. She's not guilty, as some newspapers say, of embezzlement. What's happening here is that under the Liberal system, you're allowed to vote for Liberals of the left, right or extreme. And if anybody else appears to break up that political cartel, they will be locked out of politics or locked up in jail. Which appears to be a possibility for Marine Le Pen. She could possibly do 2 years in prison with a further 3 years suspended sentence. And there is a considerable fine attached to it as well, and 12 further members of her party have been found guilty of similar charges. Now, in Germany, the Alternative für Deutschland got 25% of the vote, but all the Liberal parties got together and locked them out of coalition government. And which means that the Germans now are going to get a repeat of the government they just voted out. And they're going to double down on their globalist and net zero policies, which again, Germans rejected. Again, in Romania, the presidential candidate Georgescu actually won, but his election was cancelled and he was disbarred from rerunning as well. And why was that? Well, he's anti-war, anti-NATO, and he's pro-nation. He's not a liberal, basically. If you're not a liberal, such as the Austrian FPO, they won the election last year. They aren't allowed in government either. So if you don't vote for Liberals, your vote will simply count for nothing. Your party will be excluded from politics because it's simply not permitted. This is a desperate system. And it's revealing the fact that it was never really, in my view, liberal nor democratic, because in order to hold on to power, it has cancelled democracy in Europe, and it is increasingly cracking down on free speech with authoritarian censorship laws, and people are now facing jail, as not just in Britain, for saying things that Liberals disagree with, or for even complaining about the mess they've made about your life. So there's no way out for us at the moment, but I think that the larger picture is there's no future for this liberal order, because it simply cannot continue by locking up everyone that disagrees with it, because there's growing numbers of that, and it's a growing majority in Europe and in Britain.
Yeah, well, that's what's really stunning. What it's showing is that there are a very significant number of conservatives left. It does get, especially when you're in Canada like I am, or in Britain like you are, or even in Spain, Father, like you are, it sometimes can feel really depressing because you feel like, wow, we're just so far gone, we're just going to fall off the deep end. And yet, in America, we saw a turnaround that in some ways is really miraculous. But you saw this as well you saw this in France because she was ahead in the polls, and they had to do lie, cheat, and steal to get rid of it. You saw it in Romania, and again, they had to lie, cheat, and steal. And then you saw it in Germany as well. Germany, of all places, you'd think, oh my gosh, how can they have any semblance of conservatism? Yet there it is in the background. Father, your take.
It's an amazing thing what's happening. And we're not finished yet. We're not finished yet. This is just beginning to boil. Just beginning. I have not run into one Spaniard, one, who was in any sense a liberal. And I'm talking to a lot of people who are working class people, where you would imagine socialism and communism to be more common than that. People are seeing this doesn't work. But you've got people in power who have so much invested in keeping power that they're going to do it any way they can. Look what they tried to do to Donald Trump, and what they're still trying to do. They are not going to permit him to be president of the United States. Now, this is outrageous. This is outrageous, but that's exactly what they're doing, because they are right. In this sense, the left is right. That's it. And they're going to predominate. That's it. That's it. There's no discussing. But we keep forgetting that Hitler and Mussolini and Mao, they were liberals. They were not conservatives. They were not conservative. They were liberals. They were Marxists. They were everything for socialism. This is not working. Socialism does not work. It simply does not work. People know that. And people are now feeling that. And they're responding. And this is scaring the liberals because they've got too much invested in this. Too much invested in this. They're not going to let go without a fight. But they'll get a fight. They will get a fight because people are tired of it. It's not working.
Yeah. And they can watch what happens when they lose their fight. Trump just froze $27.5 million in funding to Planned Parenthood because they violated anti-DEI immigration orders. So when the right gets in, sometimes, if they've realized, like President Trump has, that the left is out to kill him, quite literally, he sticks it to them. And I hope that the political leaders that do manage to get in, despite the whatever the left can do to try and stop them, they take a page from President Trump and they have to divest themselves of the old bureaucracy that is in there, because they're not going to work with you now that the new administration is in. No, they won't. They're still on the other side and they're against you and they're going to fight you. We should have learned that rule in our chanceries a long time ago, because unfortunately, even though the church is not supposed to be political, it is very political on the inside. And it's all about anti-Catholicism on one side and true Catholicism on the other. And that might sound stark, but to me, politics proved it as well, because it seems to be those who are against the country versus those who are actually for the country. Because as Frank, you've said so many times, the Biden administration was out to harm America. And that's what it was about.
Well, Trump said, I'm a nationalist last week. And if you're a nationalist, you are in the national interest. And you're obviously interested in people in the nation being born, which is one reason to point out, a good reason to point out, that the people that you're up against, the liberal globalists, if you like, they stand for policies of actual suicide and national suicide. What they've done, not just in promoting abortion and the sterilisation of children through gender ideology and the whole raft of anti-family policies that have destroyed the single income family and made it really too expensive to have a family, both in Canada and across Europe. Many people complain of this fact. They're actually killing their own nations. Now, people have realised this fact, that they're paying taxes to vote for and voting for national suicide whenever these people get in. This is the situation that they're in. They've absolutely devastated the working class. They're not delivering a better life for anyone. It's full of adverts for a kind of utopia, their political messaging. But it's not, nobody believes in it anymore. It's not appearing. They've promised an earthly paradise and delivered something more like a hell on earth, because wages have remained stagnant, everything's going up in price, and the simple fact of the cost of living crisis combines with enormous pressures due to the open border consumer market economics of the Liberals as well. Everything that they promote destroys the nation and destroys your value of life, as well as the value of life itself. And people have simply got a stark choice now. They can either vote for the end or for a new beginning. It's life or death. And this is the reason why I think the Liberals are finished, is because they have no solution to the problems they've created, because they are the problem. And people are realising that.
Father, I have this one for you. It is a tough question. Something has happened inside the church where similarly we're fighting an, I would say, life or death fight between a vision of Catholicism that's not the true faith and one that is. But the bishops, who are supposed to be defending the faith, because orders come from Rome, which attack the faith, and they do, are caving, even when they're good bishops. And I'm going to read you this super sad story about Bishop Michael Barber from Oakland, California. Not a bad bishop. I'm really sad to say this, but this is the news from this week. Bishop Michael Barber, in a statement that the diocese said, We have enough properly trained clergy to provide the traditional Latin Mass to the faithful, and therefore the bishop has asked that the Institute of Christ the King, sovereign priest, leave his diocese. They've been there for 20 years, and that they'll need to leave. And he said, we have enough diocesan priests to do this. So, of course, for the community that's there, that is served by the Institute, this is crushing news. If anyone's been to an Institute Mass, they're very beautiful. They're the ones that have the altar boys in the blue vestment with the white surplice and things. It's just gorgeous. It's a very reverent traditional Mass. It is, I know Cardinal Burke is very much involved with the Institute. This is super sad news. But to me, sadder yet is that this is coming from Bishop Barber, who, these are the good bishops, but doing things that seem so wrong.
How much trouble will you permit me to get into?
As much as you want, Father.
As much as you'd like. Let me just say this. I'll be brief with this. Bishop Barber I met only one time. He seems like a very good man, and he seemed like a very good bishop. And I'll tell you why I was impressed with him being a good bishop. Now, how would I make such a call? I know a lot of his clergy in Oakland, and they were very upset that he was named. I know how they live, and that they didn't like him. If you can tell a lot about a man, if you know a lot about a man by his friends, you can also know an awful lot about him by his enemies, right? I also think this, just a half word in his favor. He has to live with a clergy which is very difficult. He has a very difficult clergy. I'm sure I'm going to get calls from a number of them for saying that, but they're very difficult. They've been very difficult, and he was supposed to go in and be sort of a solution to getting some calm and stability put back into the place. I think he caved. I think he just caved. I don't believe that he believes that this is a right move. I think what he's trying to do is appease complaints by his own clergy about the direction of things. I hope that's it.
Oh, well, I think just as in politics, the liberals in the church are threatened by any other competing explanatory power, especially one that's true, as opposed to the falsehoods that they promote. And it's an act of desperation. We see this in the church as in the political sphere. Genuine reality-based solutions to politics and the genuine Catholic tradition. These are threats to the progressives, and they need to be eliminated. And I think this moment that we live in now is the last gasp. And this is why you see these desperate acts taking place. These people to hold on to what they have held on to for the best part of a century, but their grasp is slipping now. And I think in doing these things, they make it perfectly obvious what they actually stand for. And this is not going to help them. It will hasten their end.
When Bishop Barber began, you know what really inspired me, and I love this kind of a thing. He would go out to the parishes where the priests were the most problematic and show up for breakfast. Just show up, sit down and have bacon and eggs or whatever and a cup of coffee with those priests. This is I was inspired by that. I really was inspired by that, because it takes a lot to do that. And he did it. That's how he started. I think he just came to the conclusion that the problem was a little bit bigger than what he anticipated. I pray for him. I have for years. He's a good man.
We don't want to leave you with sad news, so we're going to leave you with really good news, because the solution, as Archbishop Sheen said, is for the faithful to act. And one young lady in America has done so much for life and for family. She's been punished for it. She was removed from Daily Wire. Her name is Brett Cooper. She's not a Catholic yet, but she is a phenomenal witness for life and for family. In a culture, in an age where that is almost completely rejected, she is a young lady who gets out there and says the truth on the most on these issues that you think you could never raise. Watch this. This is from LifeSite reporter Jonathan Van Maren. He always does such a great job. She's a YouTube star. Brett Cooper left the Daily Wire to launch her solo career. She had accrued over 4 million subscribers, and over 1 million of those subscribers signed up in only 4 months for her new show. When her new channel, The Brett Cooper Show, racked up 1 million subscribers before she even published a single episode. She's only 23 years old, but she became wildly popular as a Gen Z commentator overnight when her Daily Wire show, The Comment Section, launched. It was, as she put it recently, a rocket ship. What's happened now? She is releasing more long-form content. Watch her, just watch the clip of this. This is her condemning pornography.
Now, we often talk about the motivating factors that lure women into sex work. You know, the empowerment, the attention, the millions of dollars that they're promised if they just make an OnlyFans account. But I do think that we are missing part of the story.
And she also takes on the trans agenda. Watch.
But about one issue in particular. And those executive orders, he did one that established that the United States only has 2 genders, which, it's a shock that even has to be established. He's also doing what he can to ban men from competing in women's sports. He is now keeping transgender members out of the military. And lastly, he cut federal funding for the chemical and surgical mutilation of children. And that is what I want to focus on today. And obviously, there was outrage over every single one of these 4 executive orders, and it feels unlikely as Congress stands right now that any of these will be passed as bills, even though I would love them to, considering that every single Democrat in Congress voted against passing a bill that would keep men out of women's sports just last week. And I want you to hear that again. Every single Democrat.
But this is really beautiful from Brett Cooper. This is her pro-life defense that she gave in an interview with Sean Ryan on his show when he asked her about it. Watch.
Your father wanted you aborted.
Yeah.
When did you find that out?
Probably when I was 15 or 16. I was living in LA as a child actor. I think I had been on some set and everybody was like wearing their Bernie pins or whatever, pro-choice. And I just very innocently asked my mom, I was like, let's talk about abortion. I just don't understand, what are these 2 sides of the coin? I just didn't understand the issue. I think she was more pro-life, but kind of understood the pro-choice argument in terms of government overreach and, it is a woman's body. And then when it was actually an issue that she had to decide and what was put in front of her. And that was what really changed her mind permanently about abortion, was when my dad came to her. I was like, I don't want a child. Their marriage was already not great. It was an accident. It was just I don't want this child. I think that she had to reanalyze the issue from a much more personal perspective. I think she basically said to my dad, she was like, if you want this so badly, you go make the appointment. And he couldn't bring himself to do it.
So I encourage you to watch the whole show with Sean Ryan, just a beautiful apologetic for life that she gives. But this young lady, not a Catholic yet, this young lady, though, speaking to, I guess, the next generation that hopefully will come up and stay strong as with conservative moral values and being willing to say it out loud. Do you see hope for America in that the next generation might still stay in that, what do they call it, the moral majority, if you will?
Oh, certainly. And I think that the fact that Cooper's attracted millions of subscribers, most of them overwhelmingly of around her own age group, is a testament to that fact, not just in the United States, but I think across the West as well. There's a tremendous appetite for sanity against the politics of madness and an insane anti-culture that we've been forced to inhabit. One of the things that Cooper said herself about her own mission was, I just want to help people be a bit more sane. And I think that was a wonderful message, because basically she is a pro-reality messenger, which is a remarkable thing for a young woman who's doing so well in the media in her early 20s. Now, she's risen meteorically, but at the same time, the Daily Wire appears to be going in the other direction. People online have pointed out that sacking people because they disagree with Ben Shapiro has appeared to be a dreadful business move, because, of course, since Candace Owens was forced out and then Brett Cooper, the Daily Wire appears to have engaged, I think, a bankruptcy attorney, fired 25% of its staff, and its former CEO, Jeremy Boring, has resigned. So there are strong rumours that the Daily Wire is on the skids. And then it's been led there by the agenda of its foremost commentator, Mr. Shapiro, which certainly doesn't chime with the messaging that we hear from Candace and now from Cooper herself. These are happy times indeed, and yes, it bespeaks of a tremendous appetite for meaning, real meaning, among the youth, which I think feeds the rumours, and they are very strong rumours, that Cooper herself may convert to Catholicism soon.
Absolutely. First of all, I think she is going to become Catholic. I like very much, John Henry, the way you use the word yet. She's not a Catholic yet. I love that. That's exactly the way we should think. I believe she will be, because what she's doing, she's offering. Can you imagine if you had this choice? Come join us, young people. We're depressed. We hate. We find life disgusting. Everyone around us is disgusting. We want to kill babies because we don't want a future. We think we're going to kill ourselves because we don't want a future. And then you've got a voice that says, you know what? There's hope. There's goodness. There's life. There are values. There's a whole world over here. And that's what she's inviting them to. She'll be successful. She'll be successful because she's on the right side of everything.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Father, your blessing, please.
Benedicat vos omnipotens Deus Pater, Filius et Spiritus Sanctus, descendit super vos, et manit semper. Amen. God bless one and all.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Frank. Thanks all of you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Faith and Reason.
Aloha, everyone. This is Jason Jones for LifeSide News. We hope you enjoyed this video. For more content like this, check the link in the description. You can also connect with us on social media to stay up to date with the latest news on life, faith, family, and freedom. Thanks for watching, and may God bless you.